They say love can conquer all. But what happens when that love is tested by betrayal, secrets, and the harsh reality of public scandal? In this tangled web of devotion and deceit, Abby Miller believed she had the perfect life with the man of her dreams. She gave up everything: her career, her passions, her independence to be the beautiful wife. But when whispers of Mistress named Olivia Vance turned her world upside down, Abby was forced to confront the unthinkable. Little did she know, the greatest shock was yet to come. Because Olivia wasn't just any mistress. She held secrets explosive enough to destroy everyone involved. Abby Miller never imagined her life would become the stuff of headlines. She was raised in a small town called Maple Glen, nestled in the rolling hills of Tennessee, far from the glitz and glamour of big cities like New York or Los Angeles. Growing up, her dreams were simple: have a loving family, a cozy home, and perhaps a small cafe where people could gather over warm cups of tea. Her father, Robert Miller, worked in carpentry, and her mother, Susan, spent her days tending a small greenhouse filled with flowers. Abby's childhood was quiet and unremarkable, but she longed for more. Fate intervened when she met Ethan Hayes. He was visiting Maple Glen on business, assessing land for a real estate development project. With his charismatic smile and big city ambitions, Ethan set Abby's heart racing. She fell quickly, convinced that fate had dropped a fairy tale romance right into her lap. Little did she know, this was just the beginning. Within weeks of meeting Ethan, Abby found herself enthralled by his stories of corporate boardrooms, lavish dinners, and weekend getaways on private yachts. He proposed to her 6 months later, kneeling in front of the greenhouse she'd grown up helping her mother manage. Abby's parents were wary. Ethan's life seemed too different from theirs. But love has a way of blinding us to warning signs. Ethan promised Abby the world, travel, comfort, and support to pursue her dream cafe. In return, Abby left Maple Glen to live with him in Seattle, Washington, stepping into a life of sophistication and potential she had only glimpsed in magazines. Her heart soared at the thought of building a future with Ethan. But as the wedding approached, Abby noticed subtle changes. Ethan's phone seemed glued to his hand, and he often left the room to take calls. There were hushed conversations and urgent trips out of town, small hints at bigger secrets waiting to emerge. The couple opted for a small, private ceremony at a lakeside lodge near Snoqualmie. Only a handful of close friends and Abby's immediate family were invited. Ethan's family, consisting of his mother, Eleanor Hayes, and his older sister, Charlotte, were formal and polite, but Abby couldn't shake the sense they disapproved of her. Eleanor, in particular, was icy, murmuring about Abby's lack of pedigree. Despite this, Abby was determined to make the best of her wedding day. They exchanged heartfelt vows, tears glimmering in their eyes. For Abby, it was a dream come true, a fresh start in a new city with the man she loved. She had always believed that love conquers all, and she was certain it would bridge whatever gap existed with Ethan's family. Shortly after the wedding, however, Ethan's behavior shifted again. He became more secretive, left for last-minute business trips, and returned home with a tension simmering beneath his polished exterior. When Abby learned she was pregnant, she was overjoyed. This was the next chapter she had always wanted: motherhood, building a family, and maybe finally setting up that cozy cafe. Her doctor confirmed that everything looked healthy for both mother and child. Abby's excitement was boundless. Yet, Ethan's reaction was muted. He offered a tight smile and mumbled about the additional expenses of a baby. Abby chalked it up to stress. Ethan was climbing the corporate ladder at lightning speed. Perhaps the idea of fatherhood weighed on him as a new responsibility. At Ethan's insistence, Abby stopped working to focus on her pregnancy. He promised to financially support her and assured her that his success was their success. Trusting him, Abby gave up the part-time marketing job she'd landed in Seattle. No more stable income of her own. No more personal savings, just absolute reliance on Ethan. It was a leap of faith she took without hesitation. As Abby settled into her pregnancy, she couldn't help noticing Ethan's increasing distance. He spent late nights at work, rarely answered her calls, and seemed to be losing interest in the joys of her pregnancy. Whenever Abby tried to bring up nursery decor or baby names, Ethan brushed her off with a curt, "Later. I'm busy." One afternoon, as Abby waited outside Ethan's office for a routine doctor's appointment, she saw a woman gliding out of the lobby. Tall, elegant, and dressed in a tailored black suit. She paused to greet Ethan's assistant in a familiar way. Abby's stomach churned with a sudden knot of anxiety. There was an inexplicable sense of intimacy in the woman's gesture. When Abby asked Ethan later who the woman was, he claimed she was just a consultant named Olivia Vance. But the way his eyes darted away, the way he changed the subject so quickly, it sparked new suspicions Abby couldn't ignore. Over the following weeks, Abby tried to live the perfect wife's life. She entertained Ethan's colleagues at dinner parties, looked after a growing bump, and appeared gracious whenever his mother dropped by unannounced, offering criticisms about how Abby was handling her pregnancy. Ethan's success reached new heights. He purchased a sleek condo overlooking the Puget Sound, which dazzled Abby at first with its marble countertops, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a stunning view of the water. She felt she was living someone else's glamorous life, but her restlessness crept in. The more extravagant Ethan's lifestyle became, the more hollow it felt. Late one night, Abby woke up to find the bed empty. She found Ethan pacing on the balcony, phone glued to his ear. The way he spoke hushed, urgent, with occasional laughter, did not sound like a typical business call. It was personal, intimate, and Abby felt a creeping dread that her suspicions were about to be confirmed. Driven by a gnawing fear, Abby decided to do what she never thought she would: check Ethan's phone messages. He'd left his phone charging in the living room. As she scrolled, her heart pounded. She discovered text from a contact labeled "Work Olivia." But the messages had nothing to do with real estate deals or corporate expansions. They were intimate discussions of stolen weekends, shared confessions, whispered promises of a future. Abby's breath caught in her throat when she read Olivia complaining about that gullible woman at home. The phrase stung like a hornet. When Ethan found Abby, tears streamed down her face. She demanded answers, but he merely snatched his phone away. He called Abby paranoid, overreacting because of pregnancy hormones. His gaslighting ignited a confrontation so fierce that Abby feared she would go into early labor. The beautiful marriage she had sacrificed so much for was now on the brink of collapse. Over the next day, Abby shut herself in the guest bedroom, refusing to see Ethan. She replayed their entire relationship, questioning every gesture, every promise. Ethan eventually came to her, arms laden with roses and an apology on his lips. He swore that nothing serious was happening. It was just flirting gone too far. He assured Abby that Olivia meant nothing, that he would cut ties immediately. Desperate to believe him, Abby agreed to give their marriage another chance. She demanded that he block Olivia from his phone, that he never see her again. Ethan promised he would. She wanted to believe she could forgive him. After all, she was carrying their child, and she still loved him deeply. But Abby's instincts nagged her. Even as she accepted his apology, something in Ethan's eyes told her he wasn't ready to let go of Olivia. Secrets and half-truths still lingered in the shadows. A few weeks later, Abby's anxiety worsened. Ethan resumed his mysterious late-night calls. And once again, Abby suspected Olivia was still in the picture. She confided in her best friend, Chloe Davis, whom she'd known since high school. Over coffee, Abby poured out her suspicions and heartbreak. Chloe, outraged, demanded that Abby consider leaving Ethan. But Abby felt trapped. She had no job, no savings, and a baby on the way. She had sacrificed everything: her autonomy, her old libido, support Ethan's dreams. So, Abby tried to focus on self-care, prenatal yoga, journaling, and prepping for the baby's arrival. Yet the tension with Ethan never eased. His phone never left his side. He became more irritable, snapping at Abby for trivial things. She wanted to believe that these were just growing pains of impending fatherhood. Deep down, however, she sensed that something far darker was brewing beneath the surface. One rainy afternoon, Abby was reviewing baby names on her laptop when the doorbell rang. Thinking it was a package, she answered casually, only to find Olivia Vance herself standing on the doorstep. She introduced herself with a breezy confidence that made Abby's heart pound. Olivia looked impossibly put together in a tailored burgundy coat, her glossy hair slicked back in a sophisticated bun. Olivia offered a disarming smile. "May I come in, Abby?" she asked, as if this were a polite social call. Before Abby could respond, Olivia stepped across the threshold, scanning the condo's interior like she owned the place. Abby's voice trembled when she finally spoke. "Ethan isn't here." Olivia shrugged, feigning nonchalance. "That's fine. I actually came to speak with you." Abby braced herself, dread coiling in her stomach. She had no idea what Olivia might reveal, but she sensed nothing good could come from this encounter. Abby stood frozen near the couch, her fingers trembling slightly as she clutched the back of the armrest. The air inside the condo felt too still, as if it were holding its breath. Across from her, Olivia Vance, tall, poised, and unnervingly composed, leaned against the kitchen island with the casual elegance of someone who didn't feel like a guest. She looked like she belonged there, and that unsettled Abby more than anything. "Would you like some tea?" Abby asked finally, her voice brittle, almost mechanical. Olivia raised an eyebrow, a faint smirk tugging at the corners of her lips. "Tea? That's adorable. But no, I didn't come here for pleasantries." Abby nodded stiffly and took a deep breath. "Then what did you come for?" Olivia's smile faded. She stepped forward, her heels clicking lightly against the hardwood floor. "To tell you the truth. The truth your husband keeps dancing around like it's some inconvenient rumor." Abby's stomach tightened. "He told me it was just a fling," she said, trying to steady her voice. "A mistake. Nothing serious." Olivia let out a dry, humorless laugh. "A fling." She crossed her arms, the rich burgundy of her coat making her look like she'd stepped out of a fashion editorial. "That's cute. Ethan and I were together for nearly a year. He didn't just flirt with me. He built a life with me in secret. We had weekend getaways, shared bank accounts, business plans." Abby flinched. The words sliced deep, but she refused to let Olivia see her break. "Then why are you here now? If you were so important to him, why is he with me?" Olivia's eyes flashed. "Because you were always the perfect front. The small-town sweetheart who gave up everything to be his pretty little wife. He needed someone like you, respectable, wholesome, show his investors and clients that he was stable. I was the backroom deal, the one who actually helped him close those million-dollar contracts." Abby blinked. "What are you talking about?" Olivia reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. She tapped through a few photos and held it out. Abby hesitated, then took the phone with unsteady hands. Her breath caught as she scrolled. Ethan and Olivia on a yacht in Vancouver, arms around each other at a luxury resort in Whistler, laughing over candlelit dinners. In one photo, Ethan was kissing Olivia's forehead with a tenderness that shattered Abby's composure. "Why are you showing me this?" she whispered, her voice raw with pain. "Because you need to stop living in that delusion," Olivia said. Her voice wasn't cruel, but it wasn't kind either. It was resolute. "I'm suing him for breach of contract and emotional distress. But before I burn the whole house down, I thought you should know exactly who you married." Abby looked up sharply. "You're suing him. What kind of contract?" Olivia smiled, but this time it was razor sharp. "Ethan promised me a partnership in a real estate venture. I gave him access to my father's investor network. I put my name on proposals, help him land clients. In return, he promised me equity ownership and, yes, our own future. That was the deal. And when I found out he was playing house with you, he tried to erase me like I was a mistake to delete." Abby's head spun. "So, this is revenge. This is justice," Olivia corrected calmly. Then she leaned in a little. "But that's not the worst of it." Abby backed away instinctively. "There's more." Olivia's gaze softened for the first time, though it was still tinged with sadness. "I was pregnant once. His baby. Abby's hands flew to her own stomach involuntarily. What? He convinced me to get rid of it. Olivia continued, her voice steady despite the tremor of emotion. Told me it wasn't the right time, that it would ruin everything he was working for. Promised we'd try again later when things settled down. I was stupid enough to believe him. Tears stung the corners of Abby's eyes. You had an abortion? Olivia nodded. He drove me to the clinic. Waited in the parking lot. Didn't even hold my hand. She looked away for a moment, collecting herself. That's when I realized he never intended to build anything real with me or you. He's not capable of loyalty. He uses people, then discards them when they're no longer convenient. Abby couldn't breathe. Her world spun on its axis. Everything Ethan had said, every hollow apology, every soft-spoken reassurance seat, all unraveled into lies. And now here was Olivia, standing in the middle of her living room, peeling back the last layer of the man she thought she knew. I'm sorry, Olivia said softly. Not for loving him, but for thinking he could ever love anyone. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. Abby's tears spilled freely now, hot and silent. Olivia placed her phone back in her purse and walked to the door. I won't bother you again, she said, but I hope for your sake, and your child's. You see him clearly now. And with that, Olivia left, quietly, without slamming the door, without drama. Just a final echo of stilettos down the hall, and then silence. Abby stood alone, her hand on her belly, her heart breaking in a dozen different directions. Olivia hadn't needed to finish her sentence for Abby to understand the implication. The blow was devastating, unraveling every dream she had pinned on Ethan. She could hardly breathe as Olivia recounted how Ethan had arranged for her procedure, settling the matter discreetly, leaving Olivia bitter and regretful. That was the moment Olivia decided she wouldn't be brushed aside. You and I both know Ethan isn't the man he pretends to be, Olivia had said with a chilling calm. He's a smooth talker, a manipulator. That's why I'm going to make sure he pays for what he's done legally, financially, and publicly, if necessary. Abby felt faint, fury intermingling with heartbreak. She wanted to scream, to throw Olivia out of her home, but she was also terrified. Olivia was no mere fling seeking revenge. She was a savvy professional who knew exactly how to dismantle Ethan's facade. And Abby was carrying his child, bound to him indefinitely. When Ethan finally returned home, Abby cornered him with Olivia's revelations. She demanded the truth. Had he really forced Olivia to terminate her pregnancy? Had he lied about the depth of their relationship? Ethan's reaction stunned Abby. Instead of remorse, he lashed out. He accused Olivia of being obsessed, a liar who fabricated stories for attention. She wants my money and wants to destroy our marriage because I chose you over her. He yelled, his face contorted with rage. Abby couldn't tell what was true anymore. Desperate, she asked him to swear on their unborn child's life. He hesitated, eyes flickering with something close to guilt. Still, Ethan doubled down. insisting Olivia was manipulating Abby. "I never asked her to do anything," he hissed. "She's trying to sabotage us." Abby felt torn. She knew Ethan could be charmingly manipulative. Yet, she also feared Olivia's cunning. Unsure whom to trust, Abby's faith in her marriage eroded further. Overnight, Abby's world morphed into a nightmare. Olivia's words echoed through her mind. She tried to focus on self-preservation. She told Ethan to cut Olivia out of his life completely. No emails, no phone calls, no hush money. "If you want this marriage to work," she said, her voice trembling but firm, "you have to prove it." Ethan resisted, claiming Olivia would make everything worse if he cut contact abruptly. He insisted on handling it his way. Abby realized she was no longer an equal partner in her own marriage. She was at Ethan's mercy. In a moment of desperation, Abby called her father for advice. Robert Miller, sensing his daughter's distress, implored her to come home until she could figure things out. But Abby couldn't imagine leaving Seattle. She was ashamed of how her parents would react, how her small-town neighbors would whisper. She resolved to stand firm, to weather this storm alone, though she felt more isolated than ever. Despite Abby's misgivings, she and Ethan carried on with the facade of a normal marriage. The baby's due date was 4 months away, and Abby tried to funnel her energy into prenatal classes. Yet, she could sense the tension building in the background. Ethan was restless, edgy. His business deals grew more complex, and Olivia was never entirely out of the picture. One afternoon, Abby decided to investigate further. She accessed Ethan's old laptop, left in a cabinet for months, hidden in an obscure folder labeled Consulting. She found a cache of photos and documents linking Ethan not just to Olivia, but also to questionable financial dealings. There were logs of expensive gifts and wire transfers to an account under Olivia's name. Shaken, Abby realized Ethan had lied to her about almost everything. Her unborn child's father was embroiled in a twisted web of deception, and she had no idea how to break free. The knock on the door came just as Abby was folding a basket of freshly laundered baby onesies. She moved slowly, her belly heavy with the weight of nearing motherhood, and opened the door to find Ethan standing stiffly, his face pale and his jaw clenched tight. "What now?" she asked tiredly, sensing more bad news before he even spoke. Ethan didn't answer right away. Instead, he handed her a thick white envelope with a stamped seal on the front. She took it with a frown and scanned the label, King County Superior Court. Her heart skipped a beat. She tore the envelope open with trembling fingers and unfolded the official-looking documents. Her eyes darted over the legal jargon: plaintiff, defendant, emotional distress, breach of contract, and then stopped cold at the plaintiff's name, Olivia Vance. Abby felt the blood drain from her face. "She's suing you, Ethan." Ethan pressed his fingers to his temples and sank into the couch like a man twice his age. "Yes. Apparently, she thinks I broke some kind of deal. This is just a stunt. She's bluffing." Abby's mind reeled. Breach of contract. What contract? She claims I promised her a share in a business project. Ethan muttered, avoiding her eyes, and that I used her connections to land funding. It's all made up. She's angry that I cut her off, and now she's trying to ruin me. Abby's pulse pounded in her ears as she flipped through the pages. The complaint was scathing and detailed. Olivia alleged that Ethan had entered into a verbal agreement, supported by emails and text messages, promising her a role as a partner in a new development firm. In exchange, she had introduced him to high-value investors and given him access to insider contacts. She further claimed that the relationship had been both personal and professional, and that when Ethan severed ties, he not only broke her heart, he sabotaged her career. She even has screenshots. Abby whispered, reading from the page. Texts, voicemails. She kept everything. Ethan stood up abruptly and started pacing. She's trying to extort me. If I pay her off, she'll walk away. But I won't give her a dime. She's going public with this, Abby said numbly, still staring at the legal complaint. This isn't just about money, is it? He stopped pacing. No, he said flatly. It's about reputation and control. Within days, the story hit the local press. A leaked copy of the lawsuit appeared on a gossip blog, and soon every corner of Ethan's professional world was buzzing. Headlines splashed across business sections and real estate forums. Seattle power broker hit with explosive lawsuit from former mistress and business associate. Lawsuit alleges transactional romance with promises of equity and silence. Abby watched it unfold like a slow-motion car crash. Her phone began buzzing with messages from people she hadn't spoken to in years. Some offering condolences, others seeking gossip. She stopped answering altogether. At the grocery store, she noticed a cashier glance at her stomach, then quickly look away. The shame was unbearable. Ethan tried to put on a brave face, but he was unraveling. He spent late nights with his attorney, Ms. Evelyn Reed, reviewing documents and preparing a defense strategy. Ms. Reed, cold and clinical, advised him to discredit the mistress before she discredits you. She recommended painting Olivia as an opportunist with an axe to grind. Abby sat through one of their meetings, feeling invisible. At one point, Ms. Reed looked directly at her and said, "It will be helpful if Mrs. Hayes didn't speak to the press under any circumstances." "I haven't," Abby said, her voice small. "Let's keep it that way." The condescension stung, but Abby bit her tongue. She had bigger things to worry about. The lawsuit wasn't just about Ethan and Olivia anymore. It was about her, too. Her name wasn't in the complaint, but she was the pregnant wife, the one paraded in tabloids as the humiliated victim. Paparazzi began showing up outside their condo, hoping to catch a photo of the other woman and the betrayed mother-to-be. Abby closed the blinds, turned off the news, and avoided the internet altogether. One afternoon, while Ethan was out meeting with his legal team, Abby sat in the nursery folding baby clothes with mechanical hands. Her back ached, her feet were swollen, and her chest burned with resentment. Every room in the house felt tainted by Ethan's lies. The crib they had chosen together now looked like a symbol of betrayal rather than joy. When she finally picked up the phone to call her best friend, Chloe, her voice broke the moment Chloe answered. "I can't breathe in this place anymore," she sobbed. "Every time I close my eyes, I see her face. I hear his lies. And now everyone knows. The whole world knows." Chloe was quiet for a long moment, then said gently, "You don't have to stay. You never did." "But where would I go?" Abby whispered. "You come here. To me. Or to your parents. You're not alone. Abby, you were never alone." That night, Abby sat awake while Ethan snored in the other room, oblivious. She held her belly and whispered to the child growing inside her. "I don't know what kind of world you're about to come into, but I promise I'll protect you, even if I have to walk away from everything." For the first time in weeks, she felt something shift inside her. Not fear, not grief, but resolve. News of the lawsuit rippled through Ethan's workplace and social circle. Rumors spread like wildfire. Abby was mortified. Her husband's affair was now public knowledge, fueling endless gossip and speculation. She dreaded leaving the condo. Terrified, she'd run into someone who recognized her as that pregnant wife. In desperation, Ethan had hired the high-powered attorney, Ms. Evelyn Reed. She was a no-nonsense woman in her late 50s, known for her fierce courtroom demeanor. Abby met Ms. Reed only once, and the lawyer's disapproving glare spoke volumes. She advised Ethan to keep his wife under control to avoid any additional public spectacle. Abby felt belittled, but Ethan offered no comfort. That night, Abby slept alone again. Ethan spent hours in his study conferring with Ms. Reed and other associates. Abby realized with painful clarity that Ethan was more concerned about saving his career than mending their broken trust or protecting her from public humiliation. Just when Abby felt she had no one to turn to, she received a call from an old acquaintance, Charlotte Hayes, Ethan's sister. Charlotte had been reserved at the wedding, and Abby always thought she shared Eleanor's disdain. However, Charlotte seemed genuinely worried about Abby and the baby. When they met for coffee, Charlotte explained that she had long suspected her brother's dark side. "Ethan has a pattern," she confessed. "He charms people, uses them, then discards them. I've seen him do it in business deals and in relationships." Charlotte suspected Olivia was only one piece of a larger mosaic. She also hinted that Ethan might have misappropriated funds, forging documents to cover his tracks. Stunned, Abby broke down, confessing her fears of being trapped without resources. Charlotte held her hand, promising that if Abby needed help financial or legal, she would stand by her side. For the first time in weeks, Abby felt a glimmer of hope. A pivotal court hearing arrived, one that would set the tone for the upcoming trial. Olivia's attorney, a cunning man named Mr. Julian Croft, presented an array of evidence, emails, text messages, and even recorded phone calls in which Ethan made explicit promises of financial support and business ownership. Abby attended the hearing, her pregnant belly now quite noticeable. She listened in horror as Olivia's claims painted Ethan as manipulative, controlling, and unscrupulous. Every piece of evidence seemed to confirm Olivia's version of events. Worse, Olivia declared that Ethan had asked her to take care of a pregnancy to avoid complications in his personal life. While Ethan's lawyer fought to discredit Olivia, Abby could see that the truth was more complicated than Ethan's denials. The judge set a subsequent trial date, and the press was already buzzing with rumors about the high-profile scandal. Abby's life, already in tatters, was about to be dissected publicly. Later that night, Abby confronted Ethan once more. She demanded he tell her everything. No more lies. No more half-truths. Sensing he was cornered, Ethan finally confessed. He admitted that he and Olivia had been entangled in a long-term affair. He had indeed encouraged Olivia to have an abortion when she became pregnant months before Abby did. Ethan insisted that he truly loved Abby, but he had been seduced by Olivia's ambitions and connections. She had introduced him to key investors, smoothing the way for lucrative deals. As for the lawsuit, Ethan claimed he never formally promised Olivia a business partnership. It was all an attempt to keep her from going public. Abby stood there, numb. She was furious and heartbroken in equal measure. Everything she thought she knew had fallen apart. Ethan's entire confession was an admission of betrayal and cowardice, and Abby had to decide what to do next. Abby spent the following days wrestling with questions of loyalty, forgiveness, and her child's future. Part of her wanted to leave Ethan immediately. Another part worried about how she would support herself and the baby alone. Even if she fled, Olivia's lawsuit and the public scandal would follow her everywhere. Charlotte urged Abby to file for separation and offered to help financially. Abby hesitated, feeling guilty accepting help from the sister of the man who had wronged her. Then, Eleanor Hayes, Ethan's frosty mother, compounded Abby's turmoil by showing up unexpectedly. Eleanor blamed Abby for Ethan's predicament, accusing her of not maintaining a proper household or satisfying her husband's needs. Abby was too shocked to respond. Eleanor left with a sneer, warning Abby that if she brought further disgrace to the Hayes name, she'd regret it. Isolated, belittled, and nearing her due date, Abby had never felt more vulnerable. One evening, Abby's phone buzzed with an unknown number. Expecting another reporter, she answered wearily, only to find Olivia on the line. "We need to talk," Olivia said softly. Abby bristled, but Olivia insisted it wasn't a trap or intimidation tactic. She wanted to meet, woman to woman. Reluctantly, Abby agreed. They met at a small cafe away from the city's prying eyes. Abby expected a combative exchange, but instead, Olivia shared her own story, a troubled childhood, a string of toxic relationships, and her desperation to make something of herself. She admitted that while she'd known Ethan was married, she was drawn to his promises of building a business and a family away from prying eyes. Abby was torn between anger and a strange sympathy. For the first time, she saw Olivia not as a villain, but as someone Ethan had also manipulated. Yet, Olivia was still intent on winning her lawsuit, and Abby wasn't sure how that would benefit anyone. Back at home, Ethan seethed when he learned of Abby's meeting with Olivia. He accused Abby of conspiring against him, Taking the mistress's side, Abby retaliated angrily, reminding him that he'd created this mess. She was merely trying to protect herself and their baby. Feeling cornered, Ethan made a bold move. He filed a countersuit against Olivia for defamation. His legal team argued that Olivia's claims were baseless, designed to extort money. The tabloids ate it up. New headlines blared daily about the battle of the pregnant wife versus the cunning mistress, stoking the public's fascination. Abby found herself trapped in a bizarre spectacle, forced to attend court hearings that churned up humiliating details of Ethan's infidelities. Even worse, the stress started affecting her health. Her obstetrician warned her that her blood pressure was dangerously high, cautioning that persistent stress could endanger the pregnancy. Still, Abby could see no immediate escape. As the lawsuit escalated, Abby's emotional turmoil intensified. She lay awake each night, anxiety gnawing at her mind. Was she selfish for thinking about leaving Ethan, thereby fracturing her child's family before it even began? Or was she endangering herself and her baby by staying? Ethan, overwhelmed by legal fees and negative publicity, grew more distant than ever. He also grew resentful. Abby's presence reminded him of his guilt. Their arguments escalated to shouting matches, and Abby worried neighbors would call the police. More than once, she cried alone in the bathroom, clutching her belly, whispering, "I'm so sorry," to the unborn child caught in the crossfire. Meanwhile, Olivia pressed forward with her lawsuit. Abby found it absurd, two women, both connected to Ethan, fighting for different reasons. But Olivia's personal heartbreak fueled her legal campaign, and Abby couldn't deny a grudging admiration for her perseverance. At last, the case went to trial. Cameras flashed outside the King County Courthouse. Reporters swarmed, capturing every moment of the love triangle saga. Olivia's suit against Ethan was front-page fodder. Abby took her seat behind Ethan's legal team, feeling nauseous, not only from pregnancy, but from dread. Olivia's attorney, Mr. Julian Croft, opened with a scathing summary of Ethan's misdeeds, emotional manipulation, broken promises, coerced abortion. Evidence after evidence was presented: text messages, hotel bills, and even a voice recording in which Ethan appeared to acknowledge owing Olivia for her silence. Abby sat through it all, her heart pounding with rage and shame. Ms. Evelyn Reed, Ethan's attorney, countered by painting Olivia as an opportunist who latched onto Ethan to advance her own career. She dismissed Olivia's evidence as circumstantial or fabricated. But Abby could see the cracks in Ethan's defense. The question was, how big would those cracks become by the trial's end? On the second day, Abby was unexpectedly called as a witness. Olivia's team knew her testimony could make or break their case. Abby's hands trembled as she took the oath. She was torn between protecting her husband despite his betrayal and telling the truth. Under Mr. Croft's questioning, Abby acknowledged discovering Ethan's affair through text messages. She testified that Ethan had shown remorse but continued seeing Olivia. She also admitted that Ethan's behavior had been secretive and controlling. When asked about the possibility of Olivia's pregnancy, Abby hesitated. "Ethan told me it happened, but that Olivia chose to terminate. She said, her voice quivering. I was told it was consensual. I don't know the details. MS. Reed tried to discredit Abby's statements, implying Abby's emotional state made her an unreliable narrator. But Abby refused to be cornered. She stuck to the facts. By the time she stepped down, she felt shattered, yet oddly relieved at having spoken her truth. The emotional toll proved too great for Abby's pregnant body. Leaving the stand, she felt lightheaded, her vision blurred, and she nearly collapsed in the courthouse hallway. Paramedics were called, and Abby was rushed to the hospital. The doctors diagnosed severe stress-related hypertension. Abby was placed on bed rest to avoid premature labor. She spent nights in the hospital alone as Ethan juggled court appearances and damage control. Only Chloe Davis, her best friend, and Charlotte Hayes visited regularly, offering emotional support. In the sterile hospital room, Abby finally confronted the bleak reality. Ethan cared more about salvaging his reputation than his wife's well-being. One night, when Abby was half asleep, Ethan dropped by briefly, gave her a cursory, "Hope you're okay," and rushed off to meet his attorney. She realized that her marriage was beyond repair, and something within her began to harden. Meanwhile, Olivia's legal team procured documents that could devastate Ethan's defense, bank statements showing multiple transactions from Ethan to Olivia's account, clearly labeled consulting fees, and emails hinting that Olivia had lent Ethan her father's connections in exchange for a stake in a new real estate venture. This was more than infidelity. It was potential fraud. The possibility of a criminal investigation loomed. The media latched onto the story, painting Ethan as a morally bankrupt businessman who used women and shady deals to climb the corporate ladder. Unbeknownst to Abby, Olivia herself was conflicted. Despite her anger, she felt pangs of guilt every time Abby's hospitalization was mentioned in the press. But Olivia resolved that the lawsuit had to proceed. For her, it was more than revenge. It was an assertion of power she'd been denied. She would no longer be the woman Ethan tossed aside. The final month of Abby's pregnancy approached. Bed rest gave her plenty of time to reflect. She saw a counselor who encouraged her to consider her own well-being emotionally, financially, and physically. The reality was stark. If Abby stayed, she'd be tethered to Ethan's toxic world. During a quiet afternoon at home, Mesh'd been released from the hospital under strict orders to rest. Abby made her decision. She packed a suitcase, called a taxi, and headed to Charlotte's townhouse. Surprised but sympathetic, Charlotte welcomed Abby. Over chamomile tea, Abby confided her plan. Once the baby was born, she would file for divorce, secure child support, and start over in Maple Glen, if necessary. Charlotte praised her courage, assuring Abby that she'd help however she could. For Abby, it felt like a weight lifting off her shoulders. She might be pregnant and vulnerable, but she wasn't powerless anymore. 2 weeks later, Abby went into labor unexpectedly. The pain gripped her while she was sorting through baby clothes at Charlotte's. Panicking, Charlotte rushed her to the nearest hospital. Despite the tension and heartbreak swirling in her life, Abby focused on bringing her baby safely into the world. After hours of grueling labor, Abby gave birth to a baby girl whom she named Lily Grace. Holding Lily for the first time, Abby felt an indescribable wave of love and determination. She swore she would protect her daughter from the toxicity Ethan had unleashed. Ethan arrived at the hospital late, reeking of alcohol. He half-heartedly congratulated Abby, then insisted on holding the baby for a few moments. Abby allowed him, but the sight filled her with an uneasy sadness. She realized then that Ethan's presence could no longer overshadow her child's future. This was Lily's beginning, and Abby intended to make it a bright one. While Abby was still recovering, the court rendered its verdict on Olivia's lawsuit. Olivia won the civil case against Ethan for breach of contract and emotional distress, though the financial award was smaller than she'd hoped. The judge believed Olivia's evidence that Ethan had made explicit promises he failed to honor, but also noted Olivia's own questionable motives. For Abby, it was surreal to hear that her husband still legally had lost in court. The scandal tarnished Ethan's professional reputation, forcing him to step down from his executive role. Investors fled his projects, and some threatened to file their own lawsuits. His downfall, once unimaginable, now looked inevitable. Olivia, meanwhile, gave a brief statement to the press, emphasizing that her legal victory was about accountability. Public opinion was split. Some saw Olivia as an opportunist, others as a wronged woman fighting back. Abby watched from a distance, too emotionally exhausted to even form an opinion. In the weeks after the verdict, Ethan tried to rebuild the tatters of his life. He approached Abby with a last-ditch plea to work things out, but she stood firm. She wanted a legal separation. No more illusions of a happy family. Charlotte and Chloe formed Abby's support system as she navigated the paperwork. She filed for custody of Lily, though she allowed Ethan visitation rights. She wanted Lily to know her father, but on Abby's terms. Meanwhile, Abby found a part-time marketing job, her old skill set proving useful for a small organic food company. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a step toward regaining independence. Days passed in a blur of diapers and settlement negotiations. Abby was exhausted yet resolute. She might not have the fairy tale marriage she once dreamed of, but she did have a plan for a new life, one built on her own strength, not Ethan's empty promises. A few months later, Abby decided to take Lily to Maple Glen for a visit. Chloe offered to drive, and they set off early in the morning. As the familiar countryside rolled by, Abby felt a wave of nostalgia and regret. She had left this peaceful place, chasing the dream of a perfect life with Ethan. Now she was returning as a single mother, battered by betrayal, but also stronger for it. Her parents greeted her with tears of joy, doting on baby Lily. It was a weekend of healing. Abby strolled along the old dirt roads, visited her father's carpentry workshop, and took Lily to see her grandmother's greenhouse. For the first time since the scandal erupted, she felt a sense of calm. Before leaving, Abby's father pulled her aside. "You've been through a lot. Ups," he said softly. "We're proud of you for standing up for yourself. Always remember, you have a home here." Back in Seattle, Abby received an unexpected email from Olivia, a short note saying she was moving to Los Angeles to start fresh. She'd used part of her settlement to buy into a startup that specialized in marketing for real estate companies, a twist of irony that made Abby smile. Sadly, Olivia added that she felt no ill will toward Abby, wishing her and the baby well. Abby replied with a brief message, wishing Olivia luck. It was a peculiar sense of closure. Once Olivia had been the villain in Abby's life, but now Abby saw her as another victim of Ethan's manipulations, albeit one who fought back vigorously. The messy court battles, the betrayal, the heartbreak, none of it could be undone. But Abby felt a small relief knowing Olivia would be far away, forging her own path. Everyone, it seemed, was trying to move on from the wreckage Ethan had caused. With Olivia gone and Ethan facing financial ruin, Abby found herself surprisingly free. She rented a small but comfortable apartment in a quieter part of Seattle. The lease was in her name alone, and for the first time since leaving Maple Glen, she felt a sense of ownership over her life. Lily was her beacon, a reminder that new life and hope could spring from even the darkest circumstances. Day by day, Abby learned to manage single motherhood, sleepless nights, frantic morning bottle feedings, rush hour traffic to her marketing job. It was exhausting yet empowering. She no longer worried about hidden phone calls or secret bank transactions. Her life might be simpler, but it was honest. Abby decided to reopen the dream she once had, a cafe. She began drafting a business plan during Lily's nap time, determined to create something that was wholly hers. A spark of ambition lit in her anew. One morning, Abby ran into Ethan at a local park. He was there with a friend, looking more disheveled than she'd ever seen him. Lines of worry etched his face. When he noticed Abby pushing Lily's stroller, he approached hesitantly. "How's my daughter?" he asked, voice subdued. Abby allowed him a moment to see Lily, who was babbling, happily oblivious to the tension between her parents. Ethan looked at Lily with a deep sorrow. Maybe it was regret for what he'd lost. Maybe it was shame for what he'd done. He apologized to Abby, truly, for the first time. He acknowledged that no apology could fix the past, but he wanted Abby to know he'd found therapy and was trying to become a better person. Abby listened, tears welling in her eyes. She nodded, accepting his apology for what it was, but knowing it wouldn't change her decision. She had moved on. Months went by. Abby's divorce from Ethan was finalized, granting her full custody and a modest child support agreement. With Charlotte's help, she secured a small loan to lease a storefront near Pike Place Market, a bustling tourist spot. It was risky, but Abby believed in her vision. She spent weekends repainting the walls in soft pastels, installing rustic wooden shelves, and picking out secondhand furniture with cozy charm. She named her cafe Lily's Hearth, dedicating the space to her daughter as a symbol of hope. Every detail, from the chalkboard menu to the handmade pastries, reflected Abby's journey from heartbreak to independence. When the cafe finally opened, it was slow at first, but word spread about the welcoming atmosphere, the locally sourced teas, and Abby's warm smile. Slowly, business picked up, and Abby began to see a future that was brighter than any fairy tale she'd once imagined with Ethan. On a busy afternoon at Lily's Hearth, Abby spotted a familiar face entering the cafe, a mess. Evelyn Reed, Ethan's former lawyer. Abby stiffened, recalling MS. Reed's cold demeanor. To her surprise, MS. Reed offered a polite smile and approached the counter. I've heard good things about this place. MS. Reed said, nodding at the bustling interior. She ordered a latte and, after taking a sip, complimented Abby on the delicious brew. Then MS. Reed sat down and asked if Abby had time to chat. MS. Reed explained that she was looking for a new legal marketing partner, someone to coordinate social media, branding, and client outreach for her firm. She had seen Abby's marketing work and was impressed by her resilience. Though Abby felt a surge of past resentment, she recognized this as an opportunity to expand her freelance marketing portfolio and secure additional income for Lily's future. After a moment's hesitation, Abby agreed to consider the offer. After MS. Reed's proposal, Abby spent days weighing the pros and cons. MS. Reed represented a painful chapter of her life. But this contract could significantly bolster Abby's finances and help her secure a stable future for Lily. Eventually, she set aside personal grudges and accepted, seeing it as a strategic business move. Their professional relationship turned out surprisingly positive. MS. Reed was impressed by Abby's thoroughness and creativity, while Abby found MS. Reed to be straightforward and efficient qualities she'd underestimated before. Over time, they forged an unlikely camaraderie rooted in mutual respect. The collaboration not only boosted Abby's confidence, it also helped her refine her marketing skills, which she applied to Lily's hearth. The cafe's online presence improved, drawing in more customers. For the first time since the fiasco with Ethan, Abby felt that the world wasn't stacked against her. She was carving her own path and building alliances on her own terms. A year after Lily's birth, Abby was a different woman. Her life was no longer defined by Ethan's betrayal or Olivia's lawsuit. Instead, it was defined by early mornings at the cafe, laughter with Lily, and evenings spent refining marketing strategies. Abby allowed Ethan occasional supervised visits. He seemed genuinely remorseful, attending therapy and attempting to rebuild a strained relationship with his daughter. While Abby wasn't ready to fully forgive, she recognized that harboring resentment served no one, least of all Lily. One evening, after closing up the cafe, Abby gazed at the twinkling lights of Seattle. She recalled the naive girl who had once arrived in this city, starry-eyed and trusting. Now she was a business owner, a mother, and a survivor. She smiled, feeling a spark of gratitude in her chest. Even in a world brimming with deceit and heartbreak, she had discovered her strength, and that was priceless. In the end, Abby's story isn't just about betrayal or a scandalous lawsuit. It's a testament to resilience, the power of a mother's love, and the courage to redefine one's life after total upheaval. From small-town dreams to high-stakes drama in the big city, she learned that surrendering everything for the illusion of love can lead to devastating consequences. Yet, sometimes the ruinous chapters of our lives pave the way for a more authentic, empowered future. If Abby's journey moved you, or if it reminded you of the strength that lies within each of us, we invite you to like this video. Share it with friends who might need a dose of hope. and subscribe to our channel for more stories that delve into the human heart's triumphs and trials. Your support helps us bring you more inspiring narratives. So, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay strong and believe in new beginnings.